hold the biggest business conversations of the region and of the nation at this time. And yes, you get to make sense of all the figures. More importantly, what you can do with it. You're welcome to the show. My name is Choma Ezenwafo, and yes, we are looking into a story that started in January. It started like a spark, and then it turned to flames, and then it bellowed all through and like towers to the skies, and it lasted for a month, and finally it was put off, and a couple of weeks after, another fire came in. This time at Carlton Channel, all in Rivers State. Why are oil facilities going up in flames? Am I exaggerating when I say it that way? If you see the videos, yes, it's okay to say it that way. Why are oil facilities, why are we recording these fires in oil facilities? And what are the economic implications? What should this mean? And how have regulatory agencies been responding to it? How should they be responding to it? What are the outcomes of investigations over time? And how can we ensure that it doesn't happen again? You're welcome to the show. And yes, I have guests in the studio. And you also get to join the conversation. And we're live on Facebook. We're also live on YouTube at Nigeria Info PH. And yes, you get to share your thoughts with me because I have a question. When we look at all these fires and all of the efforts being made to put it out, it took a month to put out a fire. And when the fire was finally put out, the video of it was actually put out online as well. And we saw, like a movie, it was put out. And a couple of weeks after, another fire came out. And this time, indeed, it was also like a movie, like a scene, like a movie scene. And this fire bellowed. And then, days after that fire, we hear of bodies coming ashore. Charred bodies with burns coming ashore. About 3 bodies were found days after the fire. And so it's believed that 3 bodies, these bodies were from the fire incident. NNPC have said there's nothing like that. Of course, the Carlton Channel facility belongs to the NNPC, and they've said, no, it does not belong to there were no bodies, they say, but residents, communities are saying otherwise. So on the show today, I have 2 guests. Yes, the conversation, it gets much deeper than what we looked at last week. Of course, if you follow the show, you know that last week we talked about the Ogale Shell situation. And while we keep tabs on what's going on there, we also want to look at the other areas. We cannot talk business without having these conversations and having them wholesomely. And the impact is going to have on your business. If you're a business leader, you need to come really close, because the activities around the investment risks, the business risks, the economic risks, those analyses begin with how we handle situations like this. Oil facility fires, when they happen, their impact goes beyond all of what it is that we've known to see fires affect. And so my guest, I have a question. Let me ask that question. Are the recent oil facility fires exposing regulatory gaps, and are they also economic risks? And how much of a risk are they? And so I have a guest, and I have 2 guests, like I said. The very first one is a colleague, and I've watched him cover this particular situation. That's the Carlton Channel situation. And he also has the latest in it, if I'm not mistaken. He also has the latest in the Carlton Channel, and he's going to be sharing it all with us. And yes, he is the publisher of Kristina Reports, Mr. Godswill Jumbo. Yes, a journalist is with me on a business show. Yeah. Good to have you. Thank you for making time for this.
Good afternoon, listeners. Good afternoon, listeners. It's a pleasure being with you here to have this conversation on how activities around the energy landscape affects your business.
Yes.
I think it's a topical conversation.
Yes. And I also have in the studio, he's joining on telephone. He's on WhatsApp with us. Okay, joining on telephone, the former zonal controller of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, NUPRC, Professor Godday Ineh, makes time for this conversation, and I'm very excited to have him here. Good afternoon, Prof.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, how are you doing this afternoon? Good to hear your voice.
I am pretty fine, thank you.
I think it's safe to say that we miss you in Port Harcourt. We miss you in Port Harcourt.
Well, I am always in Port Harcourt. Probably I miss your programs.
Oh, okay. Now, let's look at these issues. I want us to start with the journalist with me in the studio, because he covers that region, the Bonny. I see a lot of his stories are always coming from that axis. So I would like us to deepen the situation before we come to you to help us understand what regulatory responses should look like while we assess what is. But before we do all of that, there's a tradition we have on the show where we quickly go into the world of business and pick top stories and just get your thoughts on it. And because we have the both of you here on the show, we're just going to do two stories, okay? Two top stories in the world of business. And then you let us know what you make of it. The very first one I'm going to talk about is the story of electricity consumers in Rivers State, particularly in the Diobu axis. They protested yesterday and they were alleging inflated bills. And now, of course, we all know estimated bills, inflated bills, those are like two different issues. And we've had them for many years and it's not been resolved. Well, they protested, and then the company, the distribution company in charge of it, had an explanation for it. But the residents are not satisfied even with their services. So I'm going to start with you now, Prof. Your thoughts on this story, which is almost like a regular if you check other states. But let us know what you think. Are you there, Prof?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, are you starting with me?
Okay, let me start with the journalist in the studio with me, and then we'll come to you. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on that story. The story was in the news this morning,
Yes,
and
you are talking of electricity and the billing system.
yes. So when you think of it, yes.
That has been the challenge in the electricity industry in Nigeria. The challenge is estimated billing. And just like you rightly said, why estimated bill? Why can't we provide the meters for everybody to use, so that just like your telephone, as far as you go, if I recharge my phone, I can use as long as that token can last for me. And it is practicable in many parts of the world. Why are they not installing such meters in all the consumers, so that consumers they have the benefit of recharging their meters and having the service done? You know, here in Abuja, almost all the estates here have their own meters. So if I recharge my meter, I will use your electricity. You don't have to come to serve me a bill with what I have not used, particularly this period where you have a collapse of the national grid and the rest of them. At the end of the day, you bring a bill to say that this is what we have consumed. You have forgotten that there was one period of no electricity, and you want to estimate that into the bill of your consumer to pay for you. I think there is something fundamentally wrong, which we must have to address. We must move on from the traditional ways of doing things to the modern ways, so that everybody will be happy with the services each of the agencies is providing for the citizenry. I think that's my take in that.
Okay.
Provide the prepaid meters for everybody to use. then you are just going there to monitor whether some people are actually using the prepaid meter instead of sending a bill when there is no light for that your consumer.
Okay, now let's look at the. Let's have your thoughts now, very quickly, before we go on this break, Mr. Jumbo.
Okay, about the electricity issue in Diobu, for me, it's a bit personal for me because I am Diobu. Yes, and to imagine that since I was a teenager, we've been protesting to NEPA office and now to PhD. When I saw that yesterday and saw it online, I was like, how many years down the line? I'm a full-fledged adult now, married with a kid, and we're still having this issue in Diobu. So I would not want to, flog the issue too much. I would just point the PhD to the Bonny Utilities Company. Can they go on and understudy them? Bonny has lights. We have slight challenges here and there, but generally, you are just sure of the electricity. And in fact, you don't have electricity because you didn't buy, not because it's system failure. You understand? So
Yes.
Can they go and understudy what's going on in Bonny? Why is it that there is constant electricity in Bonny and people can just power their businesses? We are even talking of business in this show. Businesses in Bonny are thriving because the electricity is there. Whether you are a store owner, a storage facility owner, whatever, you have electricity for your welding, for your dressmaking, whatever it is.
Yes.
There's electricity to power your system, and at a cost that you can, manage, that does not drive up your operational expenses. So what is it that BUC is doing in Bonny that PhD is not doing? I want to point them in that direction and just leave it there.
Okay, so at that point, go on a break. When we return, we'll look at a big issue here, looking at the oil facility fires and the economic impact of these fires. Why are we having these fires, and why are we not able to ensure that it doesn't happen again? And how can we ensure that the regulatory agencies live up to their responsibility? Are they living up to their responsibilities, and how can we ensure they continue to do that? How can we avoid another fire? And more importantly, how do we reduce investor risk in this oil facilities? Yes, it's talking figures right here on 92.3 Nigeria Info. Yes, the break is on, and when we return, we'll talk more. Stay tuned. Here 92.3 Nigeria in full, talking figures still here. And before we went on that break, we did Market Watch and we took only one story. And yes, electricity touches the pulse of everybody and we usually have a lot to say. But I also said we're going to do two stories. So let's look at that second story very quickly before we go into the big topic of the day. And now the second story, the reason I said let's still take it is because of what it's about. It's about AI. If you've not been in a coma and you've been alive still now, of course you must have heard about AI and artificial intelligence. And a lot of people have said this is going to replace our jobs. And a lot of others have said no, it's not. Now, tell me, is this happening? Because there's a story that in Singapore, the biggest bank in Singapore is expecting to cut 4,000 roles over the next 3 years because AI is taking no more work currently done by, it's taking on more work currently done by humans. 4,000 jobs. 4,000, Jumbo. 4,000. So now, how soon before we see this happening in Nigeria? So the bank's outgoing chief executive says he expects to create around 1,000 new AI-related jobs. Now, that's very important. We are seeing courses these days that's called prompt engineering. And some people are just refusing to embrace this thing. But 4,000 to 1,000. Let's start with you, Prof. Thank you for staying tuned. What do you think about this story and AI? Are you there, Prof?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
so
you for having me.
yes, I just talked about an AI story. I don't know if you got it.
Yeah, you are talking of technology, digital technology. You know, we there in Nigeria when it comes to technology.
But a bank in Singapore is about to lay off 4,000 people.
Talking of electricity as a challenge. Can AI work in darkness?
So we are still far, right? It's going to take at least 10 years before we get there.
We must develop our own technology that will serve for us.
Right.
And the question is, are we still doing that? There are a lot of challenges. We feel that government is responsible for everybody, and because of that, any challenge in the society is blamed on government. After all, it's not supposed to be so. Our investors, our businessmen, and many of us who are inclined with technology, how far have they gone to develop something that will work for us? AI has been adopted globally as a more artificial way of doing things, not human being again doing something for us. But it just did not start today. It started a long time ago. They were testing it, designing it, redeveloping it until today. It becomes a global thing. So, where are we? What should we say will work for us? And as we are discussing this issue today, it's not everybody here in the world or in part of the world, like Africa and other parts of undeveloped countries, that understand what is AI. So it's still a mirage to many of us.
Okay. Interesting.
Even the telephone we are using, many of us do not know how to operate it. Let alone looking at advanced technology for manufacturing and production. So it is very, very difficult. And in all this equation, you will see that not only Nigeria, Africa is suffer from those because we are far, far behind.
Yes, we are.
Even when the product is being produced, can still not buy it because of fund and others. So, how can we restructure our scheme so that we can be in line or aligned with what is happening globally? Is anybody looking at that in the system? Is it coming from government? Is it coming from the private sector? And so on and so forth. So, Africa has a long way to go. If you are talking of technology.
Yeah.
If you are talking of oil and gas. If you are talking of electricity. If you are talking of manufacturing. And so on and so forth. So, this is our discussion. Can it bring something to the table? Is there anybody that is going to listen to what we are saying now to say, okay, can we have a new agenda to develop ourselves, to make things work for us? I think that is
okay.
Where we should go.
Okay, Prof. Now let's hear you, Mr. Dumbe. What do you think about this story that AI to lead to a cut of 4,000 jobs in the banking sector? We haven't even looked at the other sectors. And then 1,000 is what's going to be created. What happens to people, to these people, to 3,000 others? What do you think?
Okay, so it's a two-way thing. You know, the benefits and then the disadvantage. For those who are evolving, AI can't take your job. And you know, in our own sector, in the media sector, AI is already there, sitting in the center of the room. You know, as Kristina reports, a lot of things we do, we involve AI. You know, we have different AI subscriptions tools that we are deploying massively, you know, to be able to report the way we do. And given that we are reporting the grassroots, the rural areas, the communities, you know, and the issues are generic, for you to keep up, you need the assistance of AI. But nationally speaking, we are far, far behind. My colleague in the studio, you know, has already pointed out something, power. And we just talked about power.
Yes.
You know, Diobu people, and that's just Diobu. Several other communities have their issues. In fact, there are even communities that are even untouched at all, you know. So, we have to deal with the issue of power. We have to deal with the issue of our education system, you know, because if AI comes, see, like we could have as much as 70% of the Nigerian workforce laid off if we are to come to Nigeria, you know. Now look at, we're even talking of a country that has seen the light a bit, and you're talking of 1,000 jobs in just one organization or two, you know. Then come to Nigeria, where we have a bloated civil service.
Yeah.
You know, automation is not even there. Imagine automating our system, just the civil service. Imagine the thousands of millions, by the way, millions of workers that will be laid off, you know. And then think of every other sector of the economy. As at now, the oil and gas sector in Nigeria is still, you know, roaming around the manual environment, while in other parts of the world, our colleagues, our playmates, Saudi Arabia and the rest of them are already automated.
Yeah.
We're talking of, we want to discuss a fire outbreak at an oil facility. You know, look at these other countries. It won't even happen because the AI will just identify the issue upfront.
Risk management, risk assessment.
You understand? So this is an ongoing process. And then the countermeasures will be deployed. And then there will be no fires. But here, we are dealing with, in fact, in the course of the conversation, you are going to
unfold a lot of things. Okay, yes, that's it. Market Watch and time for insider tips. And here I'm asking a very simple question, but very difficult as well. What it is that we're doing when you think about these oil facility fires. I explained from the beginning of the show what it is that we've recorded. So a fire started in January and was able to be put out in February, and just less than 2 weeks after that, we found that another fire came up again. So are these recent fires exposing regulatory gaps and economic risks? And what's the impact for business people? What's the business implication of these oil facility fires? Should we still put our money in these things, or we should just mind our business? Anyways, it's time for Insider Tips. And my guests, they are still here. Yes, I have Professor Godday Ineh, the former NUPRC Zonal Controller. He's joined me from Abuja on the phone. And then live in the studio, I have the publisher of Kristina Reports. He's been covering the Cartoon Channel situation, and he has the latest for us. And let's begin from there now, Mr. Jumbo. Very quickly, what's the latest when it comes to the Cartoon Channel fire?
Okay, as at now, quickly, there has been a joint investigation visit yesterday, and as of today, I think the documents have been signed off. And let me not preempt what has been agreed upon. But, being who I am and what we do at Kristina Reports, we are privileged to have some very access to certain information. So, as at now, it is no more a thing of controversy that it was equipment failure. There was no external interference, so that's already settled that now. So the documentation is going on as we speak now. And then there has also been, new evidence showing that the statement earlier by the NNPC that there were no casualties, that was a fluke. As at yesterday evening, we were sure of 5 corpses sighted
5 now, not 3.
That environment, yes. In fact, today we're even talking of 6. So that's where we are. Then we are also getting it in house. Some of the equipment owners are hinting us that they have not been contacted by the NNPC. And then the assessment that has been done by us independently show that there were more vessels involved than the NNPC is saying. Some of them were sunk, they exploded, and then let in a lot of water, and they just went down. Barges, vessels, and all of that. So it was even beyond what we are being told. The videos we saw initially, were like giving us clear hint of what has happened. So the damage control is not working at all, as it is. And then relief materials were also sent by the NNPC and our partners to the affected communities and fishing settlement, but they were rejected because they were not enough. The people said no, they were too little, too inadequate. So it's just like you want to play with them. So, and then they had to go against the normal Nigerian attitude, hold the one you have been given first and then push for more. The people are saying no, hold everything.
What are the names of the fishing settlements that were affected?
Okay, we have Ilomatoro is actually a cluster of communities and fishing settlements. I may not have all the details. There is Biekri, there is Adamakri, there are other ones. I don't have all the names now,
okay.
But around that area, in fact, as you travel along the rivers, you see them on both sides, and then now, as at 2 days ago when we went there, we could see that the tide has spread the crude oil just in every direction. Several of the creeks we checked out, they were all flooded. The shorelines were flooded with crude oil. So in the very recent time, we're looking at maybe in the next couple of months, maybe a year, nobody will be able to fish or farm around that area because it's all clustered with crude oil.
That's a direct impact on local businesses.
Yes.
Interesting.
And then the businesses that own those vessels to the barges, it will take a lot of time to get those vessels out of the water and then begin to look at if they could repair them and get them back into business. So we're already seeing the business, downtime, for these people. And imagine the quantum funds that will be deployed into reviving these businesses. And the way Nigeria works, we don't see the government doing anything very quickly to revamp these businesses and get them back into line. But then the regulators, the stakeholders will deal with all of that. For us in the media is to bring out information and make sure the whole world knows what's going on.
What's going on? Now that brings me to you, Prof. Given your extensive experience at NUPRC, how do you assess the current state of regulatory oversight in Nigeria's upstream oil sector in light of these recent fires, especially this recent one that lives were lost? He's saying 6 bodies so far, and the impact is devastating. So how would you assess the current state of regulatory oversight?
Well, first of all, let me sympathize with the operator of the Captain Channel facility because it's not easy. A lot of investment has gone in there, and in less than a week, those investments have now gone into the trade. I think it's not a good thing. And so the companies operating that facility are telling you people to be sorry. Well, not only the company, Nigeria generally, because the resources, the oil and gas resources play a major role in the economy of the country, and one of them has gone on fire. So you now see that the production quota of that facility is not going to the production basket as we are talking. So I'm sincerely sympathizing with all of us for that. My co-speaker in the studio has already pointed out that there was a joint investigation visit, and what that means is that all stakeholders, the Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, the operator of the facility, journalists like you, and the host community, and many other stakeholders are supposed to visit the facility. And you can only visit the facility when the fire has been extinguished. So it takes a lot of work to do that. The damage is already done. Oil and gas are highly flammable materials. And imagine where fires gutted the facility. So it will just burn and burn and burn forever. If you look at the Captain Channel and the burning houses in particular, you see those creeks, those are creeks mobilizing for facilities or personnel. It takes some time to get there because of the nature of the environment. I want us to believe that Nigeria has lost a lot of investment in that place. I'm not going to preempt what is going to happen because, like my speaker said, the spill itself will be difficult to contain or to clean up in just a while because of the nature of the environment. But just like I said, it's not easy for the company, it's not easy for everybody around there. I think what we should do is to cooperate among ourselves. Since the joint investigation visit has identified equipment failure, equipment failure is one of those things that nobody can control. Again,
Can we really not control it if we have a standard that says something should be replaced after a while and it is not done? I mean,
of course, you can. The NUPRC conducts periodic integrity assessment of facilities. And based on that, the facility will be certified. Just like a vehicle taken to the VIO or whatever to assess for the roadworthiness. You can give the vehicle roadworthiness today, roadworthiness certificate. On driving out of that place, you have equipment failure, and that will cause an accident. So these are things that are critically done. It is very difficult to say we can easily avoid it. Yes, we can avoid it, but when it wants to happen, it is not avoidable. The best that we can do to avoid similar situation reoccurring is what we are also be saying about AI and automation of the system. If that system is automated, that could have easily shut off itself before the fire will even escalate. So the question is that facility automated? Do we have many of these facilities in the Niger Delta and the oil producing areas where the facilities are highly automated, so that you can remotely control most of the or shut them down when it comes to major accident like fire? The answer is no, because of this issue of technology, this issue of this and that, funding and the rest. So it's a pity that this is happening to us, and it will not be easy for the company to handle.
okay. All right, Prof, let's go on the phone lines now. The phone lines are open at this point. What do you think the economic risks, and what are your concerns when you listen to these oil facility fire situations and what we are making of it? What's your own thoughts? Yes, it's talking figures right here on 92.3 Nigeria Info. 0817-923-0002 is a number you can call. You can also call 0817-923-0003. Yes, oil facility fires have been, we've recorded a couple of them in the past month, January and into February, and we do not know what's happening next. But one thing we know is that lives have been lost, and the level of damage is also regrettable. And we want to know what it is that business leaders think about it. If you're on the show, yes, your thoughts are needed. What do you think?
My name is Komrele Bariaki.
Okay.
Komrele Bariaki, I'm calling you from Buri.
Welcome to the show.
I greet your guests on the studios. Well, it's very, very unfortunate that this incident happened, and my sympathy goes to the families that lost their loved one. What I'm still praying our federal government, before we come to the oil company. Now, the production that is being made and the money that is being sold, all this why can't they make provision where they can get an equipment like helicopter that can fight fire, especially within that terrain where vehicle cannot move in fast. If you can watch advanced countries where they have this wildfire, they contain it through helicopter firefighting equipment. So all this money making from oil, what do our federal government do with it? The Niger Delta people where this oil is being produced, they don't gain anything, but we are getting damages to our environment. Like this area, this fire has gotten, it will take them another 50 years to reclaim this land back, if possible. Now you ask a question to Prof. How often do the oil company do inspection check, and when equipment is due for change, they change it? All these pipelines, when there is erosion on the pipeline, inside the pipeline, no, it is where oil is passing and there may be eroded. When that erosion happens, definitely there will be equipment failure. How do they do their integrity checks in all the pipeline installations within the Niger Delta? These are pipelines that were laid earlier in the 50s till now. When did they change it? It's only produce. So some number of barrels, they will give them target, produce 50 million barrels, 30 million barrels. What do they do with it? With the money? It's very unfortunate that we are working this way.
Okay. Okay, thank you for sharing your thoughts there. Unfortunately, this is the much that we can take on the show. It's quite an interesting one. We're definitely going to keep an eyes on this Cartoon Channel situation as it unfolds, and how the communities are being treated and how the communities are handling the situation themselves. We'll also bring it on here on Nigeria Info. I want to thank my guest, and Professor Godday, and he's joined me from Abuja. And Godday, Ineh. Professor Godday, Ineh, thank you so much for making time to be on the show.
Thank you.
Yes. He's the former Zonal Controller of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, NUPRC, and he's gone on to do a lot more. He's also a chief, and he's giving us his thoughts here, and it's helped deepen the conversation as much as we could. Thank you so much again, Prof. And then I also had in the studio, the publisher of Kristina Reports, Godswill Jumbo, sharing the updates from that situation at Cartoon Channel. And yes, we're going to keep an eye on it. Good job you've been doing so far, Kristina Reports.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for being on the show. And that's it on Talking Figures today. Choma is my name. Choma is Ineh-Former. Yes, we're going to do this again. Talking Figures comes your way every Wednesday, 2 p.m. We look at the burning issues and implications for businesses, for business owners, for business minds. Yes, keep a date with us again.
It is that time of the year to celebrate achievements